Not only did somebody at the Pokemon Company pitch a derpy bird that deep throats Pikachu for fun, but the higher-ups approved it. Because I'm such a fan of this franchise that can do no wrong, I decided to see if I could beat Pokemon Shield using everyone's favorite Gen 8 bird. Because I'm not like other YouTubers, I wanted to do things a little differently. So I forced a Ditto to repeatedly mate with a Cramorant and kidnap their first 6 offspring. Then I gave each of them a unique move like Superpower or Liquidation along with Surf and got them each to level 4. After a quick trip through Pokemon Bank, they were ready for action. Since I'm using a regular copy of Pokemon Shield, I had to wait 15 minutes or 17 hop interruptions until the first Pokemon Center to assemble my team. Finally, with my balls full of birds, I began my adventure. Almost immediately, I spotted my first potential problem, Yamper. This challenge should be doable since there's no electric gym, but a random Thunderfang or Thunder Punch could wipe out everyone if I'm not careful. And that part's important because of the special sauce I produced while playing with my bird. You see, this is going to be treated like a Nuzlocke up until I have one Cramorant remaining. And until that point, I won't be visiting a Pokemon Center or using healing items. So make your guesses now, who do you think will be the last Cram standing? For options, we have Cramorant, Cramorant, DTB, Crammy Mallet, Smallant, and Cramorantis. Like Rick Moranis, the actor? The guy from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? I don't know. After Cramorant and Cramorant, I kinda ran out of good ideas. Anyways, even though I had a team of weird bird Pokemon who were more interested in seeing how far they could shove a slippery fish down their throat, I was mowing people down. Hop would need a scotch after what I did to him. The wild area proved to be another simple task, me beating off several Growlithe without losing anybody. Because there's so much forced healing early on, no one had a chance to get knocked out. Now, I won't say I was cheating, but there were certain Cram I wanted gone first, including Smallant and Cramorantis. I was partial to Cramorant and Cramorant, much more fun to say. Despite my best efforts to let a bird get cooked, Hop is way too easy, and Sonia healed my Pokemon without asking. There was a woman in Galar Mine with 3 Timber who I thought would finally send somebody to Lavender Town, especially when they busted out Rock Tomb. Unfortunately, Surf one-shots Timber. I think the main issue was that because I traded over these Cramorant and they gained boosted XP and Sword and Shield have forced experience sharing, I was growing too quickly. On top of that, Surf is insane, dealing big damage initially with retaliatory damage if Cramorant gets hit. The stats on the bird are pretty good too, at least in the early going. For those of you in the UK watching this, I don't mean bird as in woman, I mean bird as in Cramorant. Though if you'll recall the Smash or Pass meta literally every streamer did a couple of years ago, quite a few birds made those lists. If the journey continued this way, things were going to get messy. That's why I was excited to find a bidet. And when his Solosis used Endeavor to bring Cramorantis to just 2 HP, I thought this battle might be a challenge. But then I got sentimental, switched into Smallant, and knocked Solosis out. I left Smallant out there for Gothita, then Hatena. It seemed like confusion on my heavily damaged Smallant would result in the first KO. But the damn thing survived, spit out the Pikachu it was deep throating, and won. If you're wondering how the game decides between Arrokuda and Pikachu, it all comes down to HP. If Cramorant's above 50%, it's Arrokuda. If it's below 50%, it's Pikachu, who also inflicts paralysis. While I know Cramorant isn't weak to grass, I still thought Milo would provide a challenge. Of course, all my Pokemon were force healed ahead of the battle, so I was basically assured to survive Turffield with everyone in tow. A random paralysis on Cramorantis due to an oddish Dunspoor aside, I made it to Milo without any surprises. I led with Crammy Mallet, one-shot Gossifleur using Ice Beam, then Dynamaxed versus Eldegoss. Max Airstream did a lot less than I wanted, and Eldegoss got a critical hit with Max Overgrowth, bringing Crammy to less than half health. I banked on Milo not getting another crit, and I was right. Things were sketchier than a Smeargle though, so I switched into Smallant while Eldegoss was still Dynamaxed. It was a reckless move, bringing her down to 24 HP. So I decided to be even more reckless, going for a game-winning pact that did not win me the game. Milo retaliated with Magical Leaf and... yeah, yet another narrow survival by Smallant with 2 HP. A couple more pecks by DTB and it was game over for a guy who can't breathe while he eats. After my first gym in the Galar region, I still had all 6 birds. Without my consent, everyone was healed again. I knew going into this that the boosted XP would be a major help in my corner, but it turns out the constant forced healing is making the run way too easy. Luckily, everything seemed to go to crap in the double battle after Milo. Clink and Helioptile are worst case scenario, both having access to electric moves. Well, Helioptile was done before firing an attack. And while Clink used Charge Beam, hitting for 4 times weakness against Crammy Mallet, it was so weak that she still had 2/3 of her health. The cameraman then used charge instead of doing anything useful, and my first potential scare ended up leaving my pants dry. Of course, just like me on Saturday nights, Hop enjoys getting spanked and paying for it afterwards. Even though his Pokemon were only a couple of levels behind, it was another easy battle. Wooloo gets one-shot by Surf, Corvisquire fell to an Arrokuda retaliation on Furry attack, and I realized too late that I probably shouldn't have let Hop select Scorbunny as a starter. Regardless, I won, and he did like 6 damage total. Naturally, the game forced another heal on me when I entered Hulbury Gym. Smallant swept the entire gym mission but was at half health, so I knew she wouldn't be making an appearance. When the battle against Nessa began with Cramorantis, I felt a tingling in my balls. Gigantamax Dreadnought knows Max Rockfall. Cramorant's only weakness besides 4 times to electricity is 2 times against rock. I could sense a loss was coming. Things started off normally. Cramorantis lost half his health but was able to KO both Goldeen and Arrokuda. I made a tough call and decided to leave him in there. He used Surf, did a decent amount of damage, and even started sucking on Pikachu against its will. I prepared for the worst as Nessa launched her super effective attack, yet she used Max Darkness instead of Max Rockfall. Could he survive? Unfortunately, even with the questionable decision from Nessa, my first Pokemon was gone. I saluted the fallen hero whose final act was paralyzing Dreadnought. Everyone write "Thank you, Cramorantis" in the comments. DTB was up next, ready to avenge his fallen friend. I knew it was a risk to Dynamax now, given that Dreadnought still had 2 potential Max Rockfall attacks left, but I believed. Not in my Pokemon, I believed in the AI's terrible coding. Nessa used Max Darkness again, and after 2 Max Geezers, the battle was over. I'm not sure the paralysis actually mattered, but I choose to believe I wouldn't have won this without Cramorantis' sacrifice. I placed him in a box and continued my journey. After a forced heal and a forced meal, it was off to the creatively named Galar Mine number 2 with 5 Cramorant. BD wanted to play with my bird, so I obliged and used Smallant and DTB to wipe the floor against his team of not yet fairy types. Next up was a double battle against Team Yell. I used Surf, which had the collateral damage of destroying Hop's Raboot in the process. Hop then thanked me for this brilliant move by healing everybody. Seriously, why? Why is there so much forced healing? I thought it would be smooth sailing all the way to and through Kabu, but then this old bird sent out a Yamper. Any worrying was for naught as Smallant one-shot the thing. Then it was Marnie time in the Shadow Realm. I completely forgot about her Morpeko, a dark electric type. Smallant had a little bit of damage on her and took even more when Marnie's stupid Croagunk used Sucker Punch right before a one-shot pluck. I was fully expecting another weak Pokemon, but Marnie stunted on me and sent out Morpeko early. Thundershock did a massive 40 damage, but Smallant survived. Unfortunately, Paralysis stopped it in its tracks, messing everything up. Switching wouldn't help because another Thundershock to just paralyze whoever I go into and 2-shot them before doing anything. I made an executive decision and left Smallant in there. It's like Captain Kirk famously said, the needs of the Manectric outweigh the needs of the Cubfu. Afterwards, I went into Cramorant, used Superpower, and one-shot the rat. Scraggy was a weakling, falling to a pluck. Smallant, you will be missed, and Marnie, you can pluck off. Kabu was up next. I figured he would be the easiest gym of the bunch, and my team of DTB, Cramorant, Cramorant, and Crami-Mallet would have a date with Alistair. Well, things got interesting in the gym mission thanks to L, who is a big L. Her Salandit used Fake Out on DTB in 2 separate battles. I obviously responded with Surf and KO'd both her Salandit and the wild Pokemon, but it left DTB at half health for Kabu, so I started Crami-Mallet. Despite me being a couple of levels higher than Kabu's Pokemon, Crami-Mallet's Surf couldn't get the job done against Ninetales. She took a Will-O-Wisp plus a Quick Attack before getting the knockout. The attack damage reduction of Burn isn't a problem, it's the HP loss. Kabu's Arcanine also lowered Crami-Mallet's attack, which again isn't an issue. I just turned Crammy into a Surfing Bird and one-shot it, sucking on an Arrokuda as a result. At this point, it seemed like Crammy would have to be sacrificed. Switching isn't really a great strategy, especially against the Gigantamax Centiskorch. So I launched a Surf, and to my astonishment, it did a ton of damage. After surviving a max Flutterby solely due to resistance and spitting instead of swallowing, I was in a great position. I rewarded Crammy by Dynamaxing, then blasted a Max Geyser directly into Centiskorch's face, securing the win without any losses. Then it was off to the desert, where I found myself staring down a back-to-back battle against Team Yell. Due to the harsh sunlight, Surf would be weakened, meaning my best attack was nerfed. Still, I had to use it. Cramorant faced Stunky, KOing it after 2 Surfs and 1 Spit-Up. Since I'm also doing set battles and not switch, Cramorant stayed out there against Lanoon. I thought Cramorant would be faster and went with Pluck since he was already throating a fish. I was wrong. Night Slash brought him down too low, forcing DDB into action. After he ate 2 Night Slashes, the battle was won. Unfortunately, the downside to back-to-back poundings is that you don't get time to recover. Cramorant was on the field once again, meaning Cramorant had to be assured it was still useful. Thankfully, the Grunt kept using Sand Attack, and a super effective superpower took care of the Lightbird. Everything would have been fine if Hop did the thing, but he decided that now would be a terrible time to heal me, probably due to his deep depression from sucking harder than a Cramorant on a Pikachu, and peaced out. That meant all of my birds were damaged in the desert, and danger was around every corner. First up, Sweet Anita with her Clefairy and Clefable, who take not nearly enough damage from Surf. Not only that, they have access to Metronome, both the strongest and weakest attack in the game. Anita's Clefairy launched the first Metronome, and thankfully it was just a Razor Leaf. Again though, even with DTB heavily damaged, I couldn't really switch. Metronome could be anything from Growl to Thunder. Skill wouldn't carry me through this, it was all luck. Well, I must have sat on a horseshoe or something because Clefairy couldn't move due to paralysis, getting knocked out a turn later with Pluck. That meant a level 30 Clefable. It used its first Metronome, and it was Yawn. Could DTB actually survive this? Of course not. After a decent plucking, Clefable's next Metronome was a freaking Giga Impact, and that was the end of DTB. Paralysis and a turn for recharging meant an overall win, but I lost DTB, Max Mofo's favorite member of the team. Before reaching the 4th gym, my team was already cut in half. But I wasn't out of the danger zone quite yet. The gauntlet continued. Without a guaranteed heal, I had to be smart if I wanted everyone to make it to Alistair. So I saved my freshest bird, Crammy Malik, and went with Cramorant in the battle against Artist Duncan, the funniest looking NPC. Even though he had 34 hit points, I thought Coughing would use Smog or something weak. Instead, the stupid thing blew its entire load and used self-destruct, meaning that was the unceremonious end of Cramorant. Despite that loss, there was no waking up from this nightmare. I sent out Cramorant, Duncan countered with Sudowoodo. I thought Superpower would get the job done over a Nerf Surf. That was a glorious miscalculation on my part. Even though Rock Slide has a 10% chance to miss, Duncan clearly still resents the Vancouver Grizzlies being moved to Memphis. It was an instant KO on Cramorant, leaving Crammy Malik as my final Cramorant and the one who I'd be beating the game with. Assuming that was even possible. After laying Cramorant and Cramorant to rest, Hop decided to take his revenge on me for all those losses by challenging me to a battle. His first Pokemon, a freaking Cramorant. I won the battle, taking just 9 points of damage. Had I been less flippant with my Cramorant, I could have used Crammy Malik earlier, sparing her 2 lost comrades. Instead, I would now have to beat Pokemon Shield with a single Cramorant, who currently had access to Surf, Ice Beam, Pluck, and Spit Up, along with Misted Water for increased water damage. If you think this is going to be easy, just remember that Leon has 6 Pokemon, all of whom are between level 62 and 65. And there's the double battles against Raihan. What do you think's going to happen when I roll up with just 1 Pokemon? Comment your guesses down below right now. One good thing about Crammy Malik being the lone survivor is that I can heal between battles now, making Alistair's trainers easy to defeat. Along the way, I replaced Plucked with Drill Peck. That meant it was time for Alistair's team of 4 versus my lone level 35 Cramorant. Except if you watch my Tackle Challenge video, you'll know that there's something dark and sinister lurking deep inside Alistair's balls. First up though is Yamask, an absolute pushover who gets one-shot by Surf. Instead of sending out Mimikyu next, Alistair flexed on me and went immediately to Cursula. Surf only took away half of its health, and he responded with the worst possible attack. While it does hurt the dead coral reef in the process, Curse also causes Crammy Malik to lose a quarter of its health each turn. And thanks to the fact that Alistair went Cursula before Mimikyu, and Mimikyu's disguise keeps it protected against the first hit, I was done before reaching Gengar. For attempt number 2, it was the exact same story. Yamask KO'd in 1 hit, then Cursula Curse, followed by Mimikyu stalling me for a turn while I get drained. Even with a Dynamax, I fainted the turn before Gengar would have hit the field. Battle number 3 was slightly different. Cursula quickly knocked itself out, meaning I reached Mimikyu a turn earlier. Disguise is still a massive problem, but I made it to Gengar. Except with just 32 hit points remaining, I never stood a chance. I mentally prepped myself for hours of facing Alistair. But on attempt number 4, the AI decided it was tired of winning, and Cursula used Ancient Power instead of Curse. Yeah, it took half my health and raised Cursula's stats, but I was still faster and won. Then instead of using Slash, Mimikyu decided on Baby Doll Eyes. I responded by Dynamaxing and knocking it out with Max Geyser. The downside to Dynamaxing is that I can't Deep Throat anybody. The upside is a movie with Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston. Also, I reached Gengar with 89 hit points. Superior speed allowed me to launch a Max Geyser, bringing Gengar to the red. After surviving a max darkness, Cramorant secured the victory after just 4 attempts, mostly thanks to Alistair's terrible decision making. On the way to Balonlay, something hilarious happened. Because I only have one Pokemon on my team, I couldn't battle anyone in Glimwood Tangle. The little "I see you" animation played as I approached them, but when I reached their lines of sight, I was able to ride right past. So for those who were wondering what happens when you try to do a double battle with one Pokemon in Sword and Shield, the answer is nothing. If you suddenly got a whiff of Baby Powder and Metamucil, that's because it's time for Opal. Her gym trainers provided no issue, so I entered the battle with a level 41 Cramorant. One Surf and Bird later and Weezing was done. Despite Ice Beam being super effective against Togekiss, it only took half of its health, meaning Crammy had to eat an Ancient Power to the face, which raised all of Togekiss's stats. That stat boost saved Togekiss the next turn, but a timely freeze saved me and let me move on to wait, what? The damn thing immediately unthawed and KO'd the amateur right after? What the hell, Opal? For attempt number 2, Weezing Sludge poisoned Elliot, putting me in dire straits after just one attack. Thankfully, Togekiss wasn't able to get a boost from Ancient Power, meaning it fell in 2 Ice Beams. With Poison slowly whittling away my already low health, Opal sent out Mawile, so I countered with a Dynamax. While Max Geyser's a one-shot, Poison brought Crammy down to just 9 HP, which didn't make me all creamy. I'd need another one-hit KO, otherwise I'd lose. I launched Max Geyser as it rained and watched with sweaty feet as All Creamy's HP bar raced to the bottom, ultimately stopping at 2 after a critical hit. Just like that first battle's unthawing, Game Freak trolled me again. For attempt number 3, Weezing Sludge didn't poison me, Togekiss didn't raise its stats with Ancient Power, and Mawile fell to a single Max Geyser. That left me in perfect shape for All Creamy, who barely did anything with G-Max Finale and was blown out by 2 Max Geyser, including a critical hit for good measure. In just 3 attempts, I buried the Octogenarian. Afterwards, Hop surprised me on Route 7, where he has a pretty crappy team except for his Boltund. Well, the damn thing's weak as hell and got one-shot by Surf, likely due to me being 9 levels higher. Even without fighting wild Pokemon, Cramorant was holding her own. That being said, with Melony's ice types on the horizon, I realized I was ill-equipped to act with insufficient tact, so I went to the wild area. After far too many max raid battles, I beat a Hitmonchan and obtained the TR for Superpower, which turns Cramorant into an absolute powerhouse. Now she has access to Surf, Ice Beam, Drill Peck, and Superpower, meaning Melony should be quaking in her Uggs. I also increased Crammy's Dynamax level by feeding it candy, because as we all learned from Elf, eating nothing but candy makes you stronger. Her gym trainers were minor annoyances, and I reached Melony in no time. Frostmoth didn't bug me whatsoever, getting one shot by Drill Peck. That's when I made a monumental mistake, going directly for a Dynamax against Darmanitan. You see, I wanted the attack boost from Max Knuckle as early as possible. Well, that was dumb. Because not only did Darmanitan survive, I forgot she had an Ice Cube with Ice Face. Yeah, huge miscalculation on my part. To make matters worse, Ice Cube froze me with a super effective freeze dry I never unthawed, and it was GG's before even getting to Lapras. For attempt number 2, I rectified my mistake and didn't Dynamax against Darmanitan. Turns out that was also a miscalculation. The first Icicle Crash did massive damage, and Surf plus Arrokuda didn't take the knockout. So Darmanitan entered Zen mode, which increases its speed by several stages. One fast Icicle Crash later and it was game over. I know I should have suffered through several more failed attempts, but I was streaming the challenge and got impatient. So I re-entered Melony's gym at level 54. Even then, Surf didn't one-shot Darmanitan, though Arrokuda was able to clean it up. Ice Cube's Ice Face only blocks physical attacks, so a critical Surf easily KO'd it. That left Lapras, who I was seeing for the first time. With Cramorant at half health, I Dynamaxed and Melony Gigantamaxed. The first Max Knuckle did a lot less than I was hoping. Thankfully, G-Max Resonance is a surprisingly terrible attack, and I was able to win with 3 Max Knuckle. After Lapras exploded, because why not, I put my hand on Melony's hand and we moved them up and down for an uncomfortable amount of time. Hop challenged me to a battle in front of the hot spring in Sir Chester right after, and we were magically teleported to a random field to get it on. His double managed to survive Surf, but Hop apparently thinks we're still on Route 1 because he used Growl. The Hail finished off his sheep, meaning it was time for another electric type. Except it's a mere level 39 Pinsirchin who fell to a single Surf. After finishing off Cinderace, Snorlax managed to slam its thick body onto Cramorant, getting a lucky paralysis in the process. Thanks to Arrokuda and Hail though, Snorlax was knocked out, meaning it was time for us to whip out our birds and compare them. Well, mine was heavily damaged and paralyzed, leading to Hop's Dwarvenite scoring a win with Drill Peck. I don't know if I'll ever mentally recover from the shame of losing to Hop. Well, do you know what's worse than losing once to Hop? Sitting on your Pokeballs. Also, losing to Hop twice. I'm not sure if Double knows any other moves because it used Growl again. Except this time it survived Surf and Hail, and Leon Jr. decided to give it a Hyper Potion to really annoy me. That meant Crammy had lost 30 hit points from 2 growls. Pinsirchin and Cinderace still sucked, but of course Snorlax paralyzed me again, I couldn't move, and it was another defeat due to Hail. Like, what the hell is happening? How am I possibly losing? Now 17 levels ahead of Hop's double, I finally managed to one-shot it along with Pinsirchin and Cinderace. Obviously I was going to win this one, right? Well, clearly the game hates me because for the 3rd time in a row, Snorlax's Body Slam paralyzed me. I'm starting to think Crammy Mallet might be enjoying Snorlax's Body Slams a little too much. Naturally, Hop used a Hyper Potion, Cramorant couldn't move, and by the time Snorlax fell, I had just 7 HP left. I would need a one-shot or else we'd be going to an unprecedented 4th battle against Hop. Even with paralysis, I was faster, but Surf couldn't get it done. Pikachu, however, did, and I knocked out Corviknight. Except Shield counted as a loss because Cramorant also reached 0 HP. I was positively fuming at this point. For the 4th attempt, Double, Pinsirchin, and Cinderace were all done after a single Surf. Then it was Snorlax. For the 4th battle in a row, Body Slam paralyzed me. I don't know if paralysis is guaranteed in this battle, but the odds of that happening naturally are insane. Hop decided once again to heal Snorlax, letting Hail bring Cramorant's HP to just 67 when Corviknight hit the field. That was just enough as Surf brought Hop's hard bird down low enough for Arrokuda to finish the job. At that point, I vowed to never lose to Hop again. Marnie and her Morpeko were waiting for me outside Spikemouth, and I had flashbacks to the last time we fought. This time though, I was prepared and superpowered Morpeko straight to hell. I thought I was in the clear, but Toxicroak survived Drill Peck with a sliver of health and managed to confuse me with Swagger. Not only that, I was tormented and couldn't use Drill Peck again. She then healed Toxicroak, Crammy Mallet punched herself in the face for massive damage, and I made the boneheaded decision to use Surf against the Pokemon with Dry Skin. It was a calamity of errors. Cramorant barely managed to survive Poison Jab, but thanks to Swagger boosting its attack, Drill Peck took the KO right after, with Superpower taking care of Scrafty. Inside Spikemouth, something very interesting happened. You see, there's a forced double battle during the gym mission. I didn't know there was a forced double battle during the gym mission. The Team Yellow Grunt won't even let you win if you have just one Pokemon, meaning you're all probably seeing this exchange for the first time ever. So I grabbed an Eternatus I had from Pokemon Sword and decided to show them what a real Dark type is. Of course, I made it to Piers easily, still on-siding away Eternatus ahead of the gym battle so there weren't any shenanigans. Considering that you can't Dynamax in Spikemouth, and that's been part of my winning strategy, would being 16 levels higher than his Pokemon be enough? Apparently not, because Drill Peck 2-shot Scrafty and Malamar survived Surf, bringing Crammy Mallet to 1/3 of her health. Obstagoon is 4 times weak to fighting, so it shouldn't have been an obstacle for superpower. Well, Obstagoon knows Obstruct, which protects the user. And if you hit someone using Obstruct, your defense falls harshly. No matter, a super duper effective superpower should win me the battle, right? Of course not. Thanks to Scrafty's Intimidate at the start of the battle, my attack was nerfed. And thanks to my defense being down 3 stages, Piers choked my bird and I had to keep on gooning. For attempt number 2, I had to walk down the hallway again and watch the unskippable cutscene of a singer not singing. This time, Scrafty fell to Arrokuda Payback after using Payback, and so did Malamar. But at just 40 hit points remaining, things were looking Grimmsnarl. Because Superpower failed me last time, I went with Surf. It made no difference, and Piers once again choked me while gooning as I was deep-throating a fat rat. Now at level 65 for my 3rd attempt, 20 levels above Piers' Pokemon, things got weird. Scrafty used Fake Out, then survived another Surf but fell to Arrokuda. Malamar, of course, survived with 1 hit point remaining, leaving me in rough shape for Obstagoon. Thankfully, Cramorant managed to live after Throat Chop and Pikachu took the KO. That left Skuntank. I'm ashamed to admit it, but the stream was ending and I used a Hyper Potion. I know, it was a moment of weakness. If I hadn't, Sucker Punch would have won it for Piers. Instead, Surf one-shot Skuntank, giving us the weird visual of watching Cramorant celebrate with a wriggling fish in its mouth. As for the suspense of Raihan's double battles, Piers kinda ruined that. You need 2 battle-ready Pokemon to take on his challenge, so I had a decision to make. I chose Eternatus last time because the grunts are useless. This time, though, I went with my lowly level 7 Sobble, who'd been crammed into a box since I started this challenge. I used Ice Beam to take care of Sliggoo, and Sobble jumped 12 levels before Pelipper decided to Air Slash it straight to hell. Here's where another very interesting thing happened. You can't continue the gym mission unless you have at least 2 alive Pokemon. Since I only had a single Max Revive in my possession and knew Sobble would get KO'd again, I had to make like a Squirtle and withdraw. While I was buying revives, I realized it's a Cramorant only run. I made the executive decision to bring back Cramorant for the gym challenge since he was one of the last Cram standing. What's hilarious is that when Cramorant used Surf on Crammy Malik, not only was it a critical hit, but Crammy fired the Aracuda at Cramorant. What the hell? Regardless, thanks to Crammy Malik's high speed and high level, I reached Raihan without any other issues. Having been traumatized by Raihan in the Tactile Challenge, I settled in for hours of Sandstorm damage. Turns out, when you can Ice Beam Flygon turn 1 for a KO, he's not that tough. Gigalith Rock Blasted Cramoranth into the Stone Age, meaning it was Crammy Malik alone against Raihan's 3 remaining Pokemon. Once I realized that Max Geyser only hits one Pokemon, I forewent Dynamaxing, Surfed, and took care of both Sandaconda and Gigalith in one hit. That meant Duraludon, a super powerful Pokemon with insane stats that surely would never get an evolution because that'd be madness. Well, I finally pulled the ace out of my hole and used the Max Knuckle for massive damage. Max Rockfall was a pitiful attempt by a little man to deal with my bird. And after another Max Knuckle, the uniquely named Dragon Badge was mine. For Victory Path ahead of Winden, I skipped as much as I could. Crammy Malik was already at level 67 and didn't need to be any higher. I know there will be naysayers who say I cheated by getting a Cramorant with boosted XP earnings, but I could have just grinded and done the same thing. Plus, I skipped as many trainers as I could and rarely battled wild Pokemon. I tried my best to be mediocre, but that's just not in my RNA. Ahead of the Champion Cup though, I did raise Crammy Malik's defense and special defense as much as I could because the damn thing's a lot weaker than you think it is. First up in the tournament is Marnie. Morpeko, someone who used to terrorize me like a Waspinator, was now just a harmless little mouse. In fact, I didn't even bother using Superpower. Surf carried me through Liepard and Morpeko. Against Toxicroak, I Dynamaxed and used Max Geyser. Listen, it had been a few days since my last Marnie battle and I forgot about Dry Skin. That snafu didn't come back to bite me though, as Grimmstomp proved to be no challenge whatsoever. It was a little weird to watch Crammy Malik celebrate hitting level 69 with a squirming Pikachu stuck in its throat though. Hop was next. Double didn't take the dub, and Pinsirchin was like almost every other electric type in this run, going down in one hit. Corviknight did manage to survive a Surf, but Hop, the ever-brilliant tactician, used Scary Face. That meant my old friend Snorlax and its squishy body. Then potentially the craziest thing in the entire challenge happened. After damaging Snorlax with a Max Knuckle, Hop told it to use Heavy Slam. Except Snorlax shook its head because, as it turns out, Dynamax Pokemon aren't affected by weight-based moves. We're learning so much in this video. That left his Cinderace, who had never survived a hit from a Cramorant this entire run. That trend continued, Dynamax be damned. After knocking out Hop's double as much as Macrocosmos Pokemon on the world's longest elevator, I found myself facing off against a crazy woman. No, not my ex-wife. Thanks to the whole being 20 levels ahead of everybody, it was smooth sailing until Oleana's Garbodor, even after I accidentally used Surf against Zarina and failed to one-shot my Lotic after Dynamaxing early. While Max Rockfall is always cause for concern, Crammy Malik survived and Garbodor was Jimmy buffeted by its own Sandstorm. You know how Gigantamax Garbodor has a train in its butt? Well, I derailed Oleana's plans of stopping me. With all that out of the way, Rose was fully dealt with, and I'm sure he won't do anything drastic between now and my battle with Leon. The round robin began against Beatty because rules are meant to be broken, just like all of his Pokemon, as Crammy Malik cannot be stopped. Nessa's the first actual challenge, especially since my best move isn't very useful. On the plus side, Drillpeck forced Golisopod to emergency exit into Barraskewda, who in turn got one-shot by Drillpeck. Pelipper's Tailwind is slightly annoying, but unfortunately for Nessa, Crammy Malik's all gas, no brakes. Even after using a full restore on Golisopod to waste my time, plus more annoying healing with Aqua Rain, Crammy Malik was able to one-shot Dreadnought with Max Geyser, securing the victory. Alistair decided to be my next victim. Or he would have been had Dusknoir not been a tank that survived Surf. That's when disaster struck. The damn thing knows Thunder Punch. I'd mostly been able to avoid electric moves up to this point, but now Alistair's lead Pokemon can get a guaranteed big hit unless I get lucky with a crit. Dusknoir did fall to Aracuda Retaliation, but that one punch left me at half health, man. Apparently Alistair's Pokemon all ate their poffins this morning because Cursula also survived Surf as well as a slobbery Pikachu to the face. Just like Nessa, he used the full restore, but Crammy Malik got a crit and took the KO. Now at a concerning 49 hit points, Alistair went with Chandelure. That was a bit of a reprieve as Surf one-shot it. I know Poltegeist is weak as hell, so I Dynamaxed to set up Rain ahead of Gengar. Well, he big brained me and used Protect. Max Geyser does go through it, but not nearly enough. Because of that stupid Protect, I had just one turn to KO Gengar with Max Geyser. I launched my attack and... Yep, Crammy Malik is an absolute beast. For those wondering, none of Alistair's Pokemon know Curse in the semifinals, which was a major blessing. Raihan was itching for another serving of failure pie, and I handed it to him on a silver platter. Even with Torkoal's Drought making it sunny, Surf still destroyed it in one hit. I briefly contemplated Dynamaxing early, didn't, and immediately regretted it. Goodra has insane special defense and survived an Ice Beam, meaning Raihan was able to retaliate with Thunder. But Raihan made it sunny, not rainy, so Thunder's terrible accuracy saved me. As a brief aside, the Arrokuda stuck in Cramorant's gullet must go through an immense amount of pain when it uses Ice Beam. Anyways, Raihan apparently doesn't know that Shell Trap is useless against Surf, so that was a quick win against Turtonator. Flygon's 4 times weak to Ice Beam, which meant I reached Duraludon without taking a single point of damage. And Raihan's supposed to be Leon's rival? Pathetic. I wanted to style on Raihan and win without Dynamaxing, but I didn't feel like looking like an idiot, so I chickened out and used 2 Max Knuckle for the win. Then it was time to smell the rose. I knew all of his Pokemon could be a problem with their high defense, so I stuck with Surf instead of a super effective superpower. Well, Escavalier survived Surf, but not Arrokuda. Then the thinkable finally happened. Kling Klang used Wild Charge and knocked out Crammy Malik. Being 4 times weak to electric attacks finally came back to bite me. Kling Klang barely survived Surf, so I know Dynamaxing would knock it out. The only question was, do I Dynamax against this Cavalier to prevent Mega Horn damage, or do I wait for Kling Klang? Well, I chose not to Dynamax, and his Cavalier's Mega Horn missed. Out of curiosity, I didn't Dynamax just to see if Crammy Malik would survive a Wild Charge. It did, barely. And Surf almost KO'd Kling Klang with Arrokuda cleaning it up. Ferrothorn is a problem since making contact will damage me, so I Dynamax and use Max Geyser. Well, that strategy went to crap after it survived Max Geyser due to resistance and used Power Whip. For attempt number 3, I decided to play it conservatively. Well, his Cavalier survived not only Surf, but the Arrokuda as well. And it even connected with Mega Horn for good measure. Abandoning my strategy 10 seconds later against Kling Klang, I Dynamaxed and Geysered for a one-hit KO, keeping Crammy healthy. I used Max Airstream against Ferrothorn, and that did a decent chunk. It responded with an idiotic Curse, meaning the only damage I'd taken was a Mega Horn. But I still had an angry kitty and a big elephant to deal with just as Crammy Malik returned to normal. Thankfully, Berserker took a catnap after getting wet, which left Copperajah. I was level 75, it was Gigantamaxed. Crammy took the Max Mindstorm like a champ and won the battle, making this Rose Wither. As you probably could have guessed, the Eternatus fights were boring except for the very end. You see, I've been selling all my items, which meant no Pokeballs. Turns out if you battle Eternatus without any balls, the game gives you a mandatory Pokeball to catch it. With all that nonsense out of the way, it was time for the moment you've all been waiting for. I stepped into the arena after 10 hours of gameplay, Crammy Malik at level 75. No matter how you slice it, Leon is a challenge. He has a full team of 6 Pokemon and his lowest level is Aegislash at 62. To make matters worse, the damn thing has super high special defense, meaning it's all but guaranteed to survive a Surf, which it did. And deal big damage with Shadow Ball, which it also did. On the bright side, Leon used a full restore instead of King's Shield, meaning Aegislash remained in Blade form, falling to a single Surf right after. Then it was Dragapult. I'll admit I was a little cocky. I thought I had a great chance to win this battle on my first attempt with a level 75 Pokemon that was quadruply weak to electric moves, because past Pilot didn't know Dragapult knew Thunderbolt. Yeah, that humbled me real quick. For attempt number 2, I knew I'd need a strategy since overleveling is a last resort. I couldn't Dynamax against Aegislash because the damn thing could waste multiple turns using King Shield, so I'm pretty much always guaranteed to lose around 80 hit points in that fight. When it comes to Dragapult, the only chance I have is Dynamaxing and using Max Hailstorm. I know it creates hail, but that's a calculated risk. Well, apparently Dragapult is the fastest Pokemon alive because it outspeeds me. I survived Thunderbolt, but Crammy was in rough shape. Thankfully, Rhyperior sucks and Haxorus can't survive Max Hailstorm. The issue here is that hail remains, meaning I have to not get hit for the rest of the battle to win. Against Rillaboom, I went for an Ice Beam over Drill Peck. It wasn't enough, and Drum Beating took me out like Franz Ferdinand. Looking at his team, this fight is fairly easy. The only thing standing between me and victory is that damn Dragapult. My third attempt followed the same script as the previous one. This time, I got to Rillaboom with 54 hit points and decided to launch Drill Peck instead of Ice Beam. Well, it did about the same as Ice Beam, and I lost again. For attempt number 4, I swapped Mystic Water for Lax Incense, hoping to masterfully bait a miss. If I was lucky, it'd save me at a key moment. Of course, not only did Aegislash hit me with Shadow Ball, it also lowered my special defense, which would explain how Dragapult's Thunderbolt was able to bring Dynamax Crammy Malik down to 50 HP. Unless I'm at level 80 or higher, the only way Cramorant is one-shotting Rillaboom is with a dodge, a crit, or a freeze, and none of those happened. Because I'm not a game of Monopoly, I decided to remove chance from this equation. I went and grabbed Wise Glasses for attempt number 5, which boosts special attack power by 10%. Maybe that would give me the edge I needed. Naturally, Aegislash got a crit with Shadow Ball. But in a stroke of luck, Cramorant finally outsped Dragapult. Rhyperior and Haxorus do nothing except chew up Dynamax turns, and I got to Rillaboom with just under half health. My Glasses super wise, I launched an Ice Beam. Of course, it still wasn't enough and Rillaboom knocked me out. Heading into attempt number 6, I honestly couldn't believe that Rillaboom was the roadblock to me beating Pokemon Shield with one Cramorant. This time around, things started off wonderfully. Aegislash didn't crit or lower my special defense and I was feeling penisy. So I decided to forego Dynamaxing against Dragapult and save it for Rillaboom. The decision paid off with a one-hit Ice Beam KO. Rhyperior and Haxorus were academic, meaning I made it to Rillaboom in amazing shape. But just like that time I knocked a pitcher of beer off the table at a strip club, my cockiness got me in trouble. Because I was feeling the flow, I didn't even Dynamax. I probably should have though, since Ice Beam wasn't a KO. But for some reason Leon used knockoff instead of drum beating and I survived. Another Ice Beam and Rillaboom went down just as Cramorant reached level 80. Purely for bragging rights, or maybe because I had 69 HP left, I decided not to Dynamax against Charizard and just use Surf. Well, that was dumb. Charizard survived with a decent amount of health and I lost. Apparently Dynamaxing is actually a good idea. As you probably could have guessed, attempt number 7 was the last one. I entered the battle with Cramorant at level 80 after 11 hours of gameplay. Aegislash still took 2 hits to beat off, while Dragapult, Rhyperior, and Haxorus all needed just 1. As soon as Rillaboom hit the field, I Dynamaxed, used Max Hailstorm, and made the Gorilla go boom. That left me staring down a Gigantamax Charizard. I launched a Max Geyser and... of course I won! As cool as it would have been to beat Leon without Dynamaxing on my previous attempt, clearly Game Freak hates fun. Leon now defeated, I can finally answer a question that's been plaguing mankind forever. Can you beat Pokemon Sword and Shield with just a Cramorant? And the answer is yes. Though why you'd want to do that outside of a YouTube video, I have no idea.